What up YouTube? Today I'm going to share with you 3 important tips that I follow every time I fly to get those epic cinematic shots that you're after. Let's get into it. Welcome back YouTube. These 3 tips I'm about to show you are universal, which means they'll work for any make and any model of drone out there. So whether you have a DJI, a GoPro or some other make, it will still work, they'll still be applicable. So tip number 1 is to plan your shots. It's too easy to just throw that drone up in the air and get flying without knowing what you're going to record until you're up there and you sort of seek any inspiration that you might get. The key here is to plan exactly what you're going to record before you even take off the ground. There's 3 things that this will achieve. Number 1 will be maximizing your battery time. Number 2 will be giving yourself a variety of footage that you can work with. And number 3 is also having a buffer in case one recording doesn't work out as intended. So recently I was up in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, Australia, and I wanted to catch that morning sunrise. Now, it took me a bit of time to find the spot that I wanted to launch from, but once I was there, I unfolded my drone and I was ready to launch, but I took a few minutes out and I just took some time looking around, planning what my shots were going to be. And first off, I decided, well, I'll start with getting a standard forward motion of the horizon. Next, I'll try a similar shot where I'll launch from the ground and I'll see the horizon grow. After that, I'll just do it straight from the ground up, all the way looking down. Maybe from there I can get low along the trees and get a nice sweep along them. And lastly, there's also a nearby road, so let me just get a shot along the road, just traveling along it and just filming straight down. Now with all those shots, I might only be using one of them for the actual project that I'm working on at the time, but those other shots I can use for another project down the track, so I don't have to drive out there again. I can just repurpose what I have already. Also, by taking a number of different shots, I'm creating a buffer. If I'd gone out there and I'd taken 20 shots of the same horizon, just going straight forward, what happens if something was wrong with that angle? What if it was overexposed? What if the camera just wasn't focusing? What if it was jittery? Who knows what? But if something went wrong, I only had one angle and I'd come back, put it on the computer, find out it didn't work. By having a variety of shots, I'm creating a buffer if something doesn't work. And most importantly, by planning, I was able to take a number of different shots very efficiently instead of wasting half my time looking around, trying to fly to different spots which don't work out. I was able to take as much footage as possible in a limited amount of time. Remember, getting those different angles is very important because as a viewer, it's very boring to see one static angle all the time. By adding different angles in, it adds complexity to the shot, so it tells a little bit of a story as well. So remember, tip number 1, plan your shots. Okay, tip number 2 is to keep it steady. This one is pretty straightforward and is exactly how it sounds. Put simply, when recording, always keep that camera steady so you get that buttery smooth looking footage every time. If you're doing a recording where you're moving the camera at the same time, make sure you do it very, very minutely and make sure it's very smooth. Don't push that camera stick all the way. All you're going to do otherwise is give the viewer motion sickness, and no one wants that when watching a video. If you're having trouble keeping a steady finger and softly pressing that camera stick forward, you may be able to adjust the sensitivity of the stick in your camera settings. Also, keep the camera moving in one direction. Don't change the direction all the time. Otherwise, you'll get footage looking like this. This doesn't direct the viewer what to look at, and it just makes your footage look very amateur. So keep that camera steady and make it do one movement and one movement only. You'll make sure that all your footage looks buttery smooth. Now tip 3 is to include a subject. Now while shooting nature with trees around and horizon looks very great as it is, and it always gives a fresh perspective, there's just something about including a subject in the shot that just gives your viewer a compelling story to sort of brew up in their own mind. You could take this shot that I showed you before of the road straight down below. Again, looks cool, but let's add a subject to it here. Film this car again paints another picture. Depending on what I combine before and after the shot, it could tell the viewer of the travel you took to get to the destination and the early morning low light driving that you had to encounter. Now you don't always have to include a subject in every single shot, but where you can, try and make an effort to get one in. And if you can manage to take 2 shots, one with a subject and one without, you're just adding variety to your shots, which means you have more flexibility like we said in tip number 1. So they're my 3 important tips that I follow every time. Plan your shots, keep it steady, and include a subject. Hopefully they helped you out, and if you like this, don't forget to like the video, comment below, and subscribe to the channel. I'm always open to ideas as well, so if you've got another suggestion for a tip, feel free to leave that in a comment as well. But thanks again for checking out the video. Until next time, happy flying.